I wanted to talk about more than about necessarily mental health, more about I wanted to talk about control.
I'm very excited to be speaking with Felipe Morell, the director of Olivia. Felipe, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Honestly, this film is so much fun. It's one of those classic sort of feels like a twisty thriller. But where did Olivia come from?
Initially came to me from an original script from Joe Leclerc, a Canadian writer that had a first version of the script, and I liked it. I thought it was very interesting, and I liked his take on it. Um, it was a little bit different as far as in the at that point it was a little bit different as far as like the psychological condition of Janice, the main character, the girl. So then I took it from there, and I worked with another writer after that, and I worked with him initially, then with another writer, and then in the middle of in the process of the work, we started to go through the character and the condition, the psychological condition. And then we started to define what had happened to her and what it is that she actually what kind of condition she had. And we even talked to a psychiatrist that helped us define it, and then we found that pretty much as diagnosing a real person, we actually defined that she had a condition that's called dissociative identity disorder, DID for short, and that basically means what people know as multiple personalities. People that actually their brains in a way develop like as if it was different compartments with different distinct personalities from one another, and then that's how we developed the character, and then the story around her, and what it was that was happening, what was happening to her with her husband, who happens to be also her psychiatrist, and then developed the whole story from there.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that too, because I mean, certainly when depicting mental health on screen, there's a delicate line to walk, especially in a thriller capacity. But this depiction of DID, like as you were developing it, what was important for you to show so that it didn't become exploitative, but it still allowed for that thriller aspect of the film?
Yeah, right. Great question, actually, because the way I see it, I wanted to talk about more than about necessarily mental health, more about I wanted to talk about control. To me, it is about control,
Mm.
and the control that people uh, may do on other people, and in reality, as human beings, we all do it. We There's always a game of control in life, in work, in jobs we have, in relationships, yeah, with our parents, with our children, with our uh, wives or husbands, with our in all our relationships. Countries want to control other countries. There's always that game of control going on, and to me, yeah, there's of course a character and a set of conditions, and a mental condition that the character has, and in fact a mental condition that all the characters have, because her husband is also, I mean, very questionably, I mean, has a lot of issues that I think are there, and so it's more about
Just a few issues there.
yeah, yeah. I
I'd
mean,
say
in fact, I mean, yeah,
Clayton.
and going back to control. I mean, he actually is controlling this girl. As I mean, he is her husband, but he's also her psychiatrist, and he has a lot of obsession, and he's been controlling her whole life since she was very young, and even using drugs on her, and a lot of things. So there's that whole game of control, and then on her side, how much control does she have, or maybe we thought she didn't have, and then maybe she had a lot more control that she let on in the and then we find out how much she has. And so it's that whole game about, as I said, about control.
Yeah, it is an interesting game of chess that's taking place because there's also this game of chess taking place within Olivia and this character as well, but there's also this control of her as well. I was wondering for you as a director, I mean, Sarah Mitic, I think it's saying Sarah Mitic does
Yes,
a wonderful
yes.
job. What's it like to construct a character like this with one of your performers, and bring out such different personalities within them? Because there are moments where you're watching and her eyes just shift, and all of a sudden it's a completely different persona.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And even to answer that, I want to say something going back a little bit to what you just said before that, before the question, and is that you even said it like even going back to the issue of control, uh, about even since she's a person that has different personalities, there is also like a game of control within her, within herself. Her different personalities are actually even playing that game of control with one another, and and with Clayton, and with everybody else, but actually within themselves. And then going back to your question, which is actually uh, part of the work with Sarah. Sarah was wonderful at working with this, and she was I thought really good at finding those actually different characters, because they are different characters. The way the idea actually works is the patients, or the people that have this mental issue, can actually have many different personalities, and they can be very distinctive from one another, and they may know or they may not know each other, or they may be conscious of the other personalities or not. So there are all those things to work with, and I think Sarah was very good at tapping into some of that. In the story, we worked with three distinctive personalities of who are Janice, Olivia, and Floria. We worked with those three. The way the character was constructed was that she has actually many more. But for story point of view, I mean, we had to limit it to something more specific. So we worked with those three personalities, and in real life, some of those patients can have dozens of different personalities. And the psychiatrists sometimes are even working to trying to find them and meet them, and get some of them out. And sometimes the patients are not always conscious of all of them all the time. So yeah, so Sarah was going back to that. Sarah was really good, and the work with her was really even fun, working about talking about how she not only the characters are distinctive, but how she transitions from one to another. And her as an actor was really good at finding those clues, or those details of to go from one character to another. We also did some some things visually with photography of sometimes going from one character to another. It's not noticeable, but we could go to a different lens also when in some of the transitions to be able to subconsciously feel that something is happening there. But Sarah was great at tapping into that and knowing those different characters that she was playing.
See, that's interesting that you would say that too, because I can't say that I noticed the cinematography, but the fact that you would put that in and do it that way, it does communicate to the audience, even if we don't realize it. Because,
Mm-hmm.
certainly watching it, we do see those changes. Sometimes we can't always put our finger on exactly how it's happened. So that's interesting that that would be intentional on your part to build it that way. That's interesting.
Yeah. Which is cool. Like in real life, sometimes we're not really conscious of every change, but they are there. Sometimes we think we felt something instinctively that something is changing or different, or but yeah, I feel that in real life it is very much that way, and it's nice to try to play to try to get to that, when we work on a film, is we're making everything up, so we're trying to find tricks to portray real life things.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to ask you about music because I thought that was interesting in this film. I mean, certainly Olivia has this trigger, but with the cello, I think it's a cello. Is Joe?
Cello.
Yeah, cello.
Yes.
I was wondering why that was something you wanted to include because it is an interesting thing, and I know music does hold power to sway ideas and thoughts. And I just thought it was why was that an important aspect to bring into the story?
It was more having to do with her past as a character, that she had been a child cello prodigy at a very young age. She was a prodigy, a very good cello player, as Yo-Yo Man, Yo-Yo Ma, the really famous cello player. Then that he's been a prodigy since he was a child. So that had more to do with her past. That was her past since from a very young age she was already a prodigy and somebody that did performances and goes into that world that has a lot of demands on somebody as well, and even as a more so for a child when they have to perform professionally, basically when they are children, and then having to do with her past family history with her parents, because the idea actually develops at a very young age. It develops on children, and it always comes from children that have been abused physically or sexually, and basically because the brain. I don't want to get too technical, and I'm not a psychiatrist. Just because on research, the things that I learned, when the brain is as a child is still developing, is a way when they suffer really heavy abuse. I'm talking really heavy abuse, not small things, but really heavy abuse. A way for that young brain to protect itself is to create different compartments, basically to almost like negate the negative parts, and hide them in their in some place there. So the music was part of that past, created from her performance as a young person, and the abuse that she suffered from her parents, and how that whole her situation developed. And then uh, I think in a way I love music. Of course, I mean everybody loves music, but I love the way it is used in some films to as part of the story, and it's not only the music that you place in the background as a soundtrack, but it is intertwined with the story, that it has something to do with the story. And I love opera, for example. I've always, loved it, and the visually, and sensor the way it feels and everything. So I think maybe that kind of slipped into it too, in some way.
Well, it works, and it does seem to flow naturally within this particular film. It's an interesting, and it's different. It's a different sort of aspect to her character. It brings out something unique, I think is interesting, as well. I love the fact that I find it fascinating that so much of the film has to deal with them trying to unite their story. I think there's a line saying her story is your story and your story is her story, as this grander narrative, but each one of them is unaware of the other one's doings, if you will, and
Yeah.
behavior. Um, and it is a fascinating piece, in that way. Felipe, I was wondering, what do you hope audiences take away from Olivia?
That's a great question, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel like we can hope so much that, and not necessarily people like it or not. That's a separate issue. But like you said, what people take, and so far I haven't watched it many times with people from outside of the film. But when I have, I've been pleasantly surprised to feel that they catch some of the ideas that I was saying here. So to me, I guess that would be the answer, is to I would love to see that people get some of those ideas when they watch, not because I'm telling them, not because it's sometimes literally said in the story, but just because those are some of the ideas behind it. And I see that some people, or the people I have watched with, I see that they are seeing those things, and they ask me about those things. So that makes me happy. I think that would be it.
I love that. I appreciate that. And honestly, the film is a lot of fun, and we've got some pretty great twists along the way.
Thank you, Steve.
Felipe, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for yours. I mean, this is a lot of fun, and really happy to talk to you
Thanks,
anytime.
thanks so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully, we will again.
Oh, just let me know. Just, yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome. Thanks, Felipe. Have a great day.
Thank you, Steve. You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.